wait really quick for this truck passing by. Hello. I think he gave me the finger.
The hobby of film photography, or really just photography in general, always seems to inflate and inspire the parasites in our head that are looking for ways to cut down on money and save costs. Comparing camera options, lesser known lenses, and even film stocks that are on the cheaper side or well past their expiration date, which is how a lot of us end up shooting expired film from time to time. You can extend the life of your films when storing them in a fridge or freezer if packaged correctly. However, there isn't always a way to know how these older films were packaged or kept, so depending on what they are and how long they've sat around, you may not even want to waste your time. I did promise at my 1,000 subscriber celebration for this channel that I would be shooting expired film on a somewhat more annual basis. How that becomes an annual excuse, I don't really know yet, but if you like this idea of shooting expired film, let's discuss how we can make this a series. And it's not like I haven't come across any new roles over the last 10 months, but I wanted this next entry to be a little bit more exciting for me and somewhat more personal, and leave it to my mom for holding out on the goods again, but we'll get to that in just a second. First, we should probably establish the rules for shooting expired film if maybe you're loading your first roll for the first time. And this practice can be broken down into 3 categories: color negative, color positive, and black and white. The usual rule for color negative is to add 1 stop of extra light for every decade that the film is expired. So for instance, this roll of Portra 160 VC that expired in 2003 is just over 20 years expired. So we would add 2 stops of extra light to hopefully expose this film correctly. The real honest truth when it comes to color positive film though, if it hasn't been stored for the right way for 10 years or even less than that, sometimes when it's even stored correctly, it's not really something you can salvage. It's cooked. So when it comes to this roll of Fuji Provia that I've had laying around my childhood bedroom since the dear old days of high school, I should honestly recycle it or just shove it down my garbage disposal. What? I don't own, I rent. But the big difference with shooting black and white expired film compared to color is its longevity. Black and white for some reason just holds together a lot better over time. Similar to the color negative film rule of 1 stop of extra light for every 10 years expired, black and white in most cases can be broken down to 1 stop of extra light for every 15 to 20 years. Honestly making it the most bang for your buck when taking the risk of shooting expired film. But we're not doing that here today, because in reality expired film is always a risk. There's about as much guarantee they're going to work as those LimeWire mix CDs I made back in 10th grade. Some of them play while others just disappoint me. Not because they don't work, but because my song choices. It's always better to overexpose than underexpose when it comes to film, and this greatly applies to your expired treasures. Back to my mom hiding stuff from me again. So I was helping her clean her kitchen a few months ago, and packed way in the back of the spice pantry for some reason, I came across not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 CVS disposable cameras that had been expired since September or November of 2008. In reality, she had forgotten they were there, but why she had them stacked next to the chicken bouillon cubes, I'll never know. But now knowing that this is an 800 speed film, we need to break down some expired film rules when it comes to anything over 400 ISO. Because it turns out these higher ISO films just deteriorate much faster over time. So on top of the golden rule of adding 1 extra stop of light for every 10 years expired, every step of ISO above 400 will need to add an extra half a stop of light to compensate for this deterioration. Are we feeling confused yet? Pretty much. So since these rolls are 16 to 17 years expired and it's 1 stop above 400 ISO, I'm gonna lean on the side of caution and expose the film for 200, maybe even 160 if I feel like the temperature or setting they were in is not that great. And with my mom's kitchen, it's not really something I can predict. But William, how are you gonna be able to manipulate the ISO in these disposable cameras? You can't. So we're gonna crack one open and put in another camera to shoot. I first start by taping over the lens with multiple layers of black tape, then hid inside a light-sealed room just to be safe with the lights turned off. You don't have to do this step, but it is October and I like pretending to be a vampire. And then I advanced the roll in the dark, shooting through every frame until the winder stopped catching and spun continuously. This will keep your film from being exposed to light before removing it to be used. If you do have a dark bag, this same practice can be performed much easier and you don't have to do the whole Twilight thing. But now this is the tricky part. You want to be very careful when extracting your roll for these plastic cameras. Just smashing them open with a hammer is not only destructive and unnecessary, but may damage the canister you're attempting to attain. The best option is to strip back the paper, safely remove the battery that powers the flash, as this can shock people still even if these cameras are old, then carefully snapping open the loading latch and removing the film canister. And wow, that's not an 800 film at all. that canister says 1000 ISO, which is a bit surprising to find, but knowing that these disposable cameras have very limited range and ability when it comes to exposure, I guess it makes sense. It's most likely still 800 or some extinct bulk 1000 ISO film. I bounced this finding off my buddy Philip, who I've been working with for a few months, and we kind of came to the conclusion that this is just unbranded Fuji or Kodak probably. Leaning more on the side of Kodak because I don't understand why a company would outsource overseas 1000 ISO bulk film, but you never know. But weren't we doing something? After you've done all of that without hurting yourself because you're a professional, you'll use a film leader that will pull the beginning of your negative out of the canister. It may take a few tries to get out if this is your first time, but the important thing is not to remove too much of your negative from the canister before loading and exposing it to light. But now you have your film ready to go. I put it in my Nikon F2, and now we just need somewhere dope to go try it out.
Couldn't we have picked somewhere that wasn't 100 degrees for once?
So what happened here? It's pretty cooked. This stuff is grainier than all the paranormal activities combined. A lot of the shadow detail is pretty crunchy, while the highlights are faint and unsaturated. I think it works fairly well for the subject matter, really eerie actually, but it's possible if I had given this more light and shot it at 160, 125, or even 100, which seems pretty overkill, it may have resulted in better images. Or maybe I'm just trying to compensate for the pain. It is so damn hot and I've taken like 3 pictures. This little abandoned town just northeast of San Diego was the perfect place to explore and not feel like a total idiot shooting a video by myself. The question is, do we want to go in here? I think we do. That'll be cool if I can get the window. Strangely enough, these 2 indoor shots seem to be exposed the best. Maybe it's because I overpump these frames with light due to the shadows, which gives me a bit of hope for the latitude when exposing correctly. I mean, that market building is pretty cool. I just don't think there's a shot. Still got the soup of the day on. This building was an insane display of everything I love about locations like this. Sure, it reeked of piss, but what doesn't out here in the desert? Also, forget everything I said about the latitude of this stock. It's awful. Hey, it's my car. Maybe I can get a shot somewhere. I don't know. Just these things dangling out of the ceiling. Holy shit. This is a final destination. I'm gonna get impaled moment right now. That's never a good sign. I don't know if we're trespassing, so we may get out of here. This camera's not part of the video. I'm just kind of testing to see if it works. Found it for $3. And it did work. I don't know if you can tell on my face. I am so hot. This is the weirdest place ever because there's a post office that's open, but everything else is just decrepit, destroyed. I'm a little bit abandoned buildinged out. It's 109. It wasn't this hot when I first got out here, but it's only getting hotter and the sun's somehow going down. Oh, so this is just not a road. This shot's actually not bad. I kind of hate when you only have 1 shot left because there's so much pressure for it to be like the perfect ending to your video, or this encompassing idea that brings it all to an end, and I don't know that I'm gonna find that out here. Okay, so I cheated a little, sue me. I just felt like the first shot in hindsight, I was a little too tight on the subject. Maybe I was facing the sun a little bit more. I did this wider version of the shot. I don't know if it was the right move or it was the better shot. It was actually a little clearer of an idea, but I think I do prefer the first shot. Somewhat more claustrophobic, but not enough to pat myself on the back or anything. I totally thought that was a snake.
Well, I think that's the video. I really hope that we got something.
And yeah, sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to, but I am happy that I brought some other cameras, so I was able to expose these locations with rolls that aren't expired, but that's not what we're really doing here in this video.
If we didn't, you live and you learn, and you just keep trying. Expired film is not a perfect science. I really wish it was, but the thing you can always count on is wanting to get back out there and keep shooting. So if this is something that inspires you to try something weird, try something different, and go somewhere cool, do it.
Sure, you can convert them to black and white and save face, pretend you shot them all on a pinhole camera, but that's kind of like a small band-aid over a lost cause. The point is, just like a tattoo, if you enter an art form with only trying to save money, your results are probably going to reek of that decision. But if you want to experiment and you don't really care what the results are, then that's probably the best mindset to go into this. Now, would I shoot any more of this film? Maybe. I could try shooting it at 100 or 125, but I think it's still going to be ass. The way I look at it though is I'm finally utilizing this stuff for something it was intended for, and not just allowing it to die next to the spices my mom never uses. She knows. These films were intended to be shot and exposed to light, not collect dust forever. If you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, all those really embarrassing things to ask for. So if you made it this far, please do that because it really helps out the channel. I think I've got some more interesting expired films we could try next time, but for now, that's what we shot, and I had a great time doing it. There it is.